Okay. I'm guessing the other participant is you.
It's recording, but I didn't hear the sound.
No, because it's probably on that.
You can recall in.
Oh,
If you
Will
can
the room-
use-
will the-
You can get sound out of your laptop.
can you switch to make the Annex the host?
I can log into an Annex.
This is very complicated.
No, actually, if I log in as Annex, that should activate.
Yeah, should.
And just mute the big room.
Yeah, I have to log in as me first. So.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. If only I could find out if I'm using the Annex account.
yeah.
Each room have its own Zoom.
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
Separate account, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that both rooms can
There's
be
a
used.
security screen on my app, so I have to have it right in front of me, so I can read it, you can't read. So,
Yeah, we've gone to a new system at work that. You own the account. When you set up the meeting, you invite the room. And when you walk into the room, it says, press to join.
And that's on Zoom?
Yeah, that's on Teams.
Oh, Teams.
Depending how convenient.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's become super easy.
Hmm,
that's Microsoft.
Yeah.
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 Well, this is Microsoft, isn't it?
No,
Zoom is
Zoom
not.
is, no, it's just standalone.
Yeah, but somehow we invite the room, which invites the audio visual system to your meeting. And then you can either turn it on from the computer or a display that's sitting over here. I'll just hit go.
Wow.
All else is in. But I don't know what that costs.
Yeah, but some of it must be hard, because I keep getting on my computer at home, welcome to Teams. You can use this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think it's part of like the whole Microsoft package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and there's a little dongle that runs around. So if I want to present to the world, I just plug the dongle into my laptop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something.
No, this one.
Oh, if I go in the other room and make the Annex the host, will that work?
So I can leave this at the front with the light.
Do you want me to go in and peek if the room's empty and we can just in there?
Go from the table.
Yeah, there's tables have to be set up and,
Well,
Right.
just two though, right? Well, actually, those tables are supposed to stay set up. I had gotten that email.
Yeah.
That they weren't
Yeah.
supposed to be being,
What do you feel like? So,
just peek.
okay, all right, see what's going on.
It might be-
So it says there are 3 participants.
Come on,
it came on?
Yes,
Okay,
so let me pause.
so is there someone out there able to verify they can hear us?
I think the only participants right now are Keith and the Annex and
Oh,
us.
there's my phone on this.
Oh, there's an iPhone.
It is totally cleared out. The tables are set up.
We
and
think we might be okay.
Yeah, I think it started to work.
So we don't know who the iPhone is.
All right, so if there's an
Mike?
iPhone on, we are dealing with some audiovisual issues that we think we figured out.
Yeah.
Okay,
On.
Okay, good.
we're good.
Good, all right, just turn your volume up when you have a chance.
It's coming through his, I'll just wait for Kathy to come back and then we'll
There we
get
go.
started. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, you gotta mute, you gotta turn the volume off, and hopefully this one works.
Okay. So are you good to go, Kathy? Okay. And you're good, Keith?
Yes,
All right, well, then we'll call the meeting to order. I think it's 7.
Just check,
Oh, wait.
you were recording, is that correct?
it is.
And we're not muted.
It says recording in the top left,
Good, all right.
and we're not muted.
And
I'm trying to put it.
and it is working, if you look at the bar on the microphone.
Yep.
It is recording.
Okay, excellent.
So we'll call the meeting to order. I think it's, I think 7:08 at 7:09 now. And we'll appoint Russ as a full member for the meeting. Do you want to join us at the table? Looks like Bruce is not coming.
Big boy.
Yeah, the grown-up table. Not that you're not a grown-up, Kathy. There's no one from the public here, so we'll have no public comment unless Kathy, you have something? Okay, so then we'll start, sorry, I'm doing this a little out of order. We'll start with the minutes from the meeting on January 16th. Thank you, Kathy, and I'm assuming Carter reviewed while I was away.
I think Kathy just, I think she put some.
Yeah, I think I did, because I was running over the Carol.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, I only had one thing on there, which wasn't really a mistake. It's just when I read this on page 4 under new business, the new Ipswich regional impact letter, I read the word windy as windy.
Oh.
So I don't know, winding,
Winding.
yeah,
All right. I have something before that. So, once you get that up, previous page. Near the top, small Roman numeral 5. Bruce motion to remove amendment 1. We voted on it. Ty was cited, Christine will keep the remaining amendment numbers the same and note that 1 was removed, but that's not what showed up for
Yeah.
this week's discussion. Just wondered if you
right,
wanted
yeah,
to
so
make it
that,
there.
yeah, we'll talk about that when we
Okay, all
get
right.
to that agenda item, but yeah, there was the whole thing
I-
between
yeah,
that
it was.
meeting and this
Yep.
one.
All right, all right, go with that.
And I wasn't sure how to do that roll call vote. Is that how I'm supposed to do it with names and yes and? Did you,
Yes,
I wasn't sure I was supposed to like specify who with yes and no.
Or
versus-
just report.
yeah, when it's not unanimous, yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on the minutes?
No,
Nope.
Is there a motion to approve as amended? And we'll do a vote. Keith,
yes.
George?
Yes.
I'm saying that was.
Okay, I'm a yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Okay, is there a HOP grant update?
Yeah, so we met for the HOP grant last night and we had a bit of a working session. We are getting ready to do one-on-one interviews with people in the community. So we are working on preparing a set of questions to share with those folks and determining how we're going to capture that information. And our goal is to have those interviews wrapped up, I believe, by the end of April, right? So that we can start to compile a recommendation to the planning board before July, which is when the grant completes. I don't, Russ, do you have anything else?
Well, we also said in here, we had noted about, I read in the minutes. That we were also preparing focus groups, and I think we talked about last night
Right,
that. Just the coordination of focus groups is too hard,
Hmm,
and so we're just gonna do the one-on-ones.
yeah. Yeah, so rather than trying to get multiple people in the same place, which we've tried to do over this past
I see, yeah.
year,
Mhm.
and it has been challenging, we're going to just do the one-on-one interviews instead.
Okay,
I do have the PDF files if you need that.
okay, great. Thank you, Keith.
And the one-on-ones is Pam Kingston coordinating the one-on-ones? Or
She is, so if you would like to be on one, you can let, well, anybody know.
Okay.
I can put you on the list.
All right, put me on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, and for anybody at home too, who is, you can email the temple planning email and I'll forward it to
Yeah.
Pam.
Okay.
So that works
Yeah,
as
I'm-
well. Or call
Okay.
the town office and they'll get the information where it needs to go. And I don't know if you want to post that. Do you want to post that anywhere on the website or?
I think we will probably do an outreach maybe on the website or social media. We
Okay.
are still, I think we have one more meeting where we're finalizing the questions that we're gonna ask before we start to do the interview, so that's in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So then after that is when we would begin those interviews.
Okay,
But yes, I think we need to promote it.
yeah,
more.
get the information out there. And yeah, like I said, feel free to use the planning board email. and
Right.
Just forward it on as needed. Anything else on the HOP grant?
No.
Okay. So then we'll move on to the zoning amendments and thank you, Carter, for editing the version of documents that went to the town clerk. And well, actually, I think they first went to the select board who sent them off to legal review, which is why the change was made. And there were, I don't know, do you want to talk about what happened and I'll just chime in at the end or?
Yeah, I summarize it at a high level. It went for legal review and the lawyer, Laura, had a bunch of feedback for us, which I guess we weren't quite expecting because we thought that was already completed. So she essentially rewrote to some extent, just in a smaller way of how the different amendments should be written.
Okay,
So we then took that and put together what you guys have as the most recent version. And basically, I think she removed a lot of the kind of helpful information, saying that should be on a handout rather than in the actual amendment. So
Right.
that is why the clarifications that we had are no longer in the amendments themselves.
okay.
Right, so you have the two documents that I sent out. One was going to be the ballot question.
Yep.
And the other
Detail?
detail,
Right.
yeah, and so that has the explanations and
Okay, all right.
the more specific language, if, you know, on the tables and, you know, that kind of stuff. There were a couple of errors which I sent off to the town clerk this morning. Just some labeling, I guess, more or less. Did I see you? I think I see.
Yeah, I saw them. I hope that wasn't.
It's
I did
probably
not
what I-
check every, like.
It's probably what I sent to
time.
you, and so I'm sure it was my mistake, and then I think having the break and
Yeah.
coming back and looking
Yeah.
with fresh eyes, I was like, oh, whoops, that's not. Like, for example, on the last page with the amending the current definitions, I said the changes, the new text were bold and underlined, but that was not the case. So I changed that to just italicize the new text, and the strike throughs are still the same.
And that's just-
And then on the definitions page, the new definitions, some of them were underlined and some weren't, so I looked at what's in our current zoning ordinance and just formatted them the same.
Okay.
As what's in our current zoning.
And
Then
we did remove that amendment number 1, so
Yes.
they all got renumbered.
they all got
Okay.
renumbered.
I was guessing somebody took at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
so
like,
you-
no, you
yeah.
just take that out. And then there was, the sections, I think that was in 2 places, let's see. The building code one, it cited section 4, but we actually had decided it was gonna be a new section 8, and I still had section 4 in the
Ah.
description, so I took that out.
Yep.
And then there was another one that also had the wrong section of the zoning identified. I think that was on number 4, maybe?
In the detailed one, somebody did a highlight it in red. Is that the-
The red part on page, well, I took off the page numbers too on the last page.
the reference on it, was the, on page
Oh, the definition for impermeable surface?
Yeah, zoning amendment number 3.
Yeah.
So that's in red. The no recommendation.
That's in the detail one, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah, that's just so people know that that's not included in, gonna be written in the zoning. It's just so people know what they're approving.
yeah,
Yep,
This notice of the bottom red is from the text struck through would be removed. The proposed text would be added,
yes,
and that's how it's supposed to be done.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one I was like, oh, it was written differently the last time and it was not clear. So hopefully it's more clear now, and I don't know if anybody else caught anything that I should be aware of in the detail one. I'm happy to make any
it looks good.
changes. So if,
My question is, what's the purpose of the detail one? Is that-
so I will put, yeah, I'll put this up on the website, and we can also have some copies available on voting day for people that want to look at them. That's, I'll probably stand outside or be around for at least part of the day if anybody wants to join me just to answer questions. If people have questions about the zoning
Okay.
amendments. Yeah, I would welcome some company to not have to be out all day, especially if it's really cold, but yeah, that's the intent behind the detail. So
Okay.
if people have questions, they'll have more information. Does that make
Yep,
sense?
that does, it absolutely does. That's a great way to explain what we're trying to do without, so people don't go.
Yeah, they
Don't
certainly
have
know
to
what they're
figure
voting
it out.
on.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up about this is that Laura had suggested that the second one on the building and code enforcement needed a little more meat to it. And we looked at the town of Dummer, and she showed me the RSA, which talks about that, and I printed out the Dummer stuff just so you can refer, but basically, they have a building inspector, and so they delegate responsibility to the building inspector for enforcement, which is not what we do. I think what she was saying is that we need to have something that says the select board is responsible for enforcement, or and what's in our zoning now says the select board can delegate the inspections, but the select board is the enforcer.
Correct.
So it's just a little, it's organizational, really, more than anything else. And then we don't reference the fire chief in our zoning, which they do. And then they have a line about establishing fees, authorizing the select board to establish fees. And what it says in ours is that we follow the RSA.
Yep.
That, says that the select board can take action as they deem appropriate. So
Okay.
I think she just wanted it to be a little bit more clear. That, I called her and spent a few minutes on the phone with her and asked her, what are we missing? And so that was it. It just, it's something we can look at next year and work with the select board to find out how they want to handle it.
Does it change if there's a code enforcement officer in place?
So right now in our zoning, we do say that the select board can appoint a code
Yes,
enforcement
that's-
officer.
yeah.
Yeah, so we already have that ability in there. I think what Ken was saying, and George, you can correct me, was they needed something so you guys could establish fees or
Right.
penalties.
Right.
So that was the question.
Yep.
So it's not very specific about the select board establishing fees.
Mhm.
It just refers to the RSA right now.
Right.
So if that's something we want to take on next year to
Okay.
look at a little bit further, then that's something we could do.
Current select board does selective enforcement,
Right,
they're like the fire department. If somebody complains, then we act. First in the fire.
right.
So if nobody's complaining about it, there's some certain things that probably should be looked at. Yeah. We usually only have a couple of people that really want strict enforcement. And then you don't like to complain about your neighbors that you get along with.
Yep, right.
So essentially what we'll do then next year is add language to better define how that is handled.
Right, or reorganize what's
Reorganize.
there now. Yeah, I think that's
she
what
was
it came
looking
down
for.
to. So I
Okay.
said, if we just submit these 2 lines this year, what are the risks? Like, what could happen? And she said, really, someone could challenge it, but that we have enough in there that we would be fine.
The other thing is about establishing fees. You can establish fees. But then it's a matter of trying to collect.
Right,
Right. Right,
It's like a chicken and egg, because you have to have the coding force first.
right.
Really.
Right.
And then that's a huge amount of money to pay for a code enforcement officer.
It's cheaper than paying the lawyer, though.
We can,
It's a lot cheaper than paying the lawyer.
we have an agreement with Nashua. If we really need something
Mhm.
enforced.
I thought there was somebody in Peterborough. I thought Peterborough. That's
I'm not sure about people right
I
now.
think the Peterborough guy was busy.
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
we have a code enforcement officer, I think, in Francistown. And I think he's handling about 3 or 4 different towns.
yeah,
Wow.
there's not many around that will do it.
Right.
I don't know. They're busy. So if everybody's okay with the detailed version, I'll put that up, and the deadline was today for the ballot questions, so they have those, and that's good to go. So next on the agenda, the tax map updates. I think not much left to say about that at this point, but what have you got, Keith?
because we didn't respond within 30 days, we assume that they are okay.
Okay.
We talked over the holiday period about trying to get the residents who have got
The
the
changes.
changes
Mhm.
to check. It's just extra work that nobody was at the time to do it. But what I did do today, I sent an email off to Franco Rossi to effectively thank him for sending the paper versions, which Carol has received. So that's what didn't prove to me that they just
They've closed it out.
closed it.
Yeah.
Because he did offer to do that one change for that 53,313 duplication on the one map.
Mhm.
And so I'm waiting for a response to that one. Hopefully, they're doing that one for free.
Mhm.
So I'll keep
Great.
going forward, it's now a much easier process to get this done on I still suggest a biannual basis, unless the GIS makes some changes, but it's more easy to do. But if it's done every 2 years, Carol Singley is actually going to keep a copy of what comes in from the Hillsborough County Register of Deeds based upon the number that's allocated to the whatever is stored there, for the map or for the deed or anything that's actually stored with them. So she will have a separate folder storing those files. So when it comes up for the update, they'll all be there and running, so that we can give them to CA more easily, not
Mhm.
right up the process.
That's great. Thank you, Keith, for taking all that on. You know, it was a lot of work to get through over the last
It's tedious for them.
few years. Yeah. GIS,
Just
sorry,
one go back. So
sure.
relative to zoning amendment, we sent the petition warrant article.
Yep.
Is that part of what's going forward?
It's,
also?
yeah, that goes through as written. We don't have any, we can't make any changes to it. That has to be submitted as was written by the petitioner.
Okay.
So the select board will handle that depending on the outcome.
Okay. Fair.
Anything else on tax maps? GIS, did you want to say something?
I haven't got any more information on the GIS.
GIS mapping conversion, yeah.
I'd like to hear back to see if we can include that with some of the DWG files.
From Moosewood, yeah.
They will create the shape files.
Yeah.
Back to us. Have you heard anything?
Yeah, I haven't seen any emails come through either.
So my once an email to them just to prompt.
I'll check in, yep. And that ties into the next agenda item, which was the Moosewood regulatory update, natural resources regulatory update. Things are still moving along with the Concom, right? I think he came to one of your meetings.
Yes, he was in our last one, found some pretty exciting, species. I actually put it in the minutes. If you go onto iNaturalist, there's a project called the Temple Biodiversity Project. And all of their findings are in there, and there's like 3,000 pathways. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
So, yeah, he was pretty excited. He mentioned they're gonna be doing a presentation in April. And I know we moved the date. Anyway, it'll be.
Okay,
But he'll be presenting, we're gonna invite, everyone, including kids, because he's gonna make it a really fun presentation and talk about all the different things he found, because he did find some rare birds. He said a snake and a turtle,
awesome.
so it's a little bit.
Who's got that from Ballot?
We'll have to see.
Traveled a lot.
He does travel a lot.
He keeps seeing this blue view from his window looking across the bay.
I know. Well,
Yeah, it's very cool.
does he come back to the Concom anytime before then? Do you have anything?
I don't know, at our March meeting, he's supposed to be zooming in. We're gonna have a hearing in March because we've got, we're gonna be asking or presenting to the public two conservation easements that we'd like to use the conservation funds to, and he's going to be zooming in to present about the triangle.
Okay,
So I don't. honestly-
okay. Do you have a date for that yet or no?
I believe it is March 17th. Because again, we had to move both meetings. both the
Okay.
April and the March meeting.
So it's not something that had to happen before town meeting?
No.
Okay.
No, the select board has given us preliminary approval based on, as long as, everything is fine with the public hearing.
Okay,
Then we can spend the conservation funds. It's for the triangle and then for property on
35.
Actually,
Oh.
Old Peterborough Road,
Oh.
the very west property. He's actually donating it to Piscataqua Land Trust.
Mhm.
And we're gonna have executory control, I think. I don't remember what the exact term, but basically if the land trust dissolves, then Temple will end up owning the property, but they will have.
This is up at the west end of.
Yes, where
Yeah.
the road basically comes down like this and then has a sharp
Yeah.
turn right as your, as 101's right there. It's gonna be right there. And there's it's a beautiful trail by a nice stream, and it will actually head up into Temple.
Okay.
Temple Mountain, so.
Where is it?
It's right,
Oh, across from the subdivision we did, yeah.
Right across the
Yep.
street.
Okay, nice. That's great.
How many acres is that, Russ?
Across the street, is it?
No,
The subdivision or the?
No, the wetland,
I was trying to,
63 acres.
68.
oh, okay.
68.
Yeah.
You probably have that up. Oh,
Great, thank you. Driveway regulations, before I went away, I think I gave you contact information.
So Joe Driscoll and I have been talking. He gave advice on how to deal with the new RSA 153:5 parentheses Roman numeral I. If you want that, I'll tell him instead.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I have mine.
That deals with the applicability of essentially his recommendation is, even though our driveway ordinance only talks about the first 30 feet, we might consider to comply with this RSA, saying that any driveway that's greater than 150 feet long be at least 12 feet wide. Which according to, folks in the trades, they end up 12 feet wide during construction anyway.
Mm,
But it's something we'll have to work, consider next year or next season, to see if that's something we want to pull in to be compliant. That'd be
Okay.
necessary.
yeah, so, the driveway regs are approved by us, not.
Correct,
the
yep.
town, so,
I
yeah.
figured we wouldn't start it tonight, but.
No, we won't start it tonight, no,
That,
but,
when you say the, 150 feet, that's, so we control the first part.
So we currently control the first 30 feet with things like width and angle to the road and
Yeah.
slopes and things like that. Just about every other town around controls the entire length of the driveway. We've chosen not to do that in our last discussion.
Yeah.
But the RSA, which I think my interpretation and, my plan was to actually send an email to our local representative to reach out to the Merrimack representative who created this RSA. It looks like his intention was to relieve the property owner of onerous requirements that were creeping in from elsewhere, as long as their driveway is 12 feet wide. If it's greater than 150 feet long. So we could choose to adopt that and relieve landowners of that requirement. Or we could choose, I have to ask them, could we choose to do nothing, in which case the landowner is now subject to these other rules, which we don't have in our code, that they have to go find and somebody has to enforce, like the select board.
Hmm.
It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was full of 14 double negatives. Well, 14 is exactly.
Yeah, no, I know.
The RS was full of, but his
It was
interpretation
well written, yeah.
is the landowner is benefited if we put in the rule of making 12 feet wide. Make it 12 feet wide.
We keep it simple.
Yeah, right. Okay,
But I think more research is due and
okay,
I'll get back to him on just some clarification I have with, and get to the representative who actually created the law.
okay.
And that's for future drive, for proposed drive,
yeah,
it's not.
yeah.
Yes, not for current
Future-
drivers, for
future-
future drivers.
What was the talk about including the fire marshal for his input or sign?
He didn't come back. I'll have to look what that,
Yeah, because I think
look back in my notes.
we were looking at the requirement for having. the-
Right.
Because I think, on a single family home or two family home, I don't think there's a requirement similar to there's no requirement for sprinklers. But if you go anything beyond that, then the fire chief does have to sign
Right.
off on things.
Right.
I'm just wondering if, I think they were trying to include that the fire chief would have to also sign on a roadway if it was greater than a certain length as well, wasn't that? in this?
I think it's a recommendation, not a
Yeah,
requirement.
correct.
The fire chief makes a recommendation.
And if you go back, when we were starting this about a year ago, I was pulling together the sizes and widths that
Yeah.
might be appropriate for the kind of fire apparatus temple
Turn
has.
around and-
Yeah.
Right,
But, and I think we can work that in as a recommendation or as a requirement, depending on how.
I think we should just
do
a
that.
recommendation, so it didn't, cause any.
Right.
Sort of noise that are drunk.
Yeah.
So at
Mhm.
least then the resident or the new resident is aware of the best. way
Right.
to do it. Because it will probably be covered by his insurance anyway, if he doesn't have it. His insurance may well be affected, so something like that would be.
Mhm.
Probably mentioned.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy to work that in as a recommendation
Mm.
and work with our fire department, our fire chief on what that recommendation might be.
thank you, Murray. Site plan and the flood maps are tabled to a future meeting. The regional impact is what's next, the New Ipswich subdivision. So I went to their meeting, with the day after our last meeting.
Thank you for going.
Sure. It was really interesting. I have to say, they do things a little differently than we do, so that was kind of cool to see how they do things differently.
This one's- is this-
Sure, yeah. So I emailed the letter to them, and then I went in person and handed them a copy, and to summarize, they're still very early in the process. They have not accepted the application as complete at this point. They have another hearing scheduled for tomorrow night. Yeah, tomorrow night, or maybe, no, Thursday. I think it's Thursday. Actually, I have the thing right in front of me. February 8th at 7 p.m. In their town office there. And they have a Zoom option available as well, if anybody wants to Zoom in to listen. Based on what I heard at the meeting, I don't see how they're gonna get 33 lots out of that. As I said, it's still very early, but my sense from the conversation was that there's a flood control dam that's sort of adjacent to one corner of the property. There's some significant slopes in a section because it was a sand pit. So as you know, there's some significant slopes which they had some concerns about. So the flood control thing, I think, is managed either by the state of New Hampshire or by the and
Yes.
yeah, it's so there's going to be it's going to take a little while for this to go through. So I did ask, that I put in that we requested a traffic study, and it sounded like they had requested that themselves anyway. And I did hear from Kent Perry that morning before I went to the meeting, or maybe it was the afternoon, but that day. And he said he didn't have any concerns about damage to the road, but in the past, he's heard complaints about the construction vehicles using that roadway. So not so much traffic after people move in, but during construction. Yeah, so I raised that issue with them as well. It's not in the letter, but I said it to them at the meeting. So we'll see where it goes. All the files are available, the plans, the drawings, everything they've collected so far is on a Dropbox on the New Ipswich Planning Board page. If you go to their agenda, there's a link for a Dropbox on their agenda. So if anybody wants to look at it in more detail, feel free. If you have any questions or concerns, the chair emailed me the next day and thanked me for coming and appreciated that we were, wanted to learn more about what they were doing and be part of the conversation. So if you have any questions, I think they're very open to hearing them. So any questions about that one? Okay. Let's move on to the subdivision regulations. Everyone have a chance to look at them again? So let's see. It's been a while since we looked at them. Do you have a copy, George?
What's the last one? Because I don't have it.
Yeah, I didn't send them with the agenda because it was, a while ago. I assumed everybody had them. It was October 5th is the date of the version that I have. And it, what?
Mark those folders.
Oh, well, I mean, I have another printed version, but for some reason it printed really funny. So I don't know how helpful it is.
That, yeah.
Well, it did like the opposite direction.
Oh.
I have October 5th.
And it's somebody's review,
Yes, so it had the attorney review, and it also had a review from New Hampshire Office of Planning and Development. So there's an admin comment, and then there's a whatever the lawyer's office is. Driscoll, not Driscoll, it was Driscoll that reviewed it, but
yeah, JTE.
yeah. So this is October 5th is what I have on the cover. Does it say October 5th on the cover?
Mine says September 5th.
Okay. Okay.
What, meeting? I mean, it's the 17th of October.
Sorry, I should have just sent out the latest version.
Which ones are potential zoning amendments 2024 version 2?
It says Town of Temple subdivision regulations.
All right, I found it.
Did you find? Like I said, I can give you the printed version, but it is kind of not, yeah. You want to try that?
As revised in September 23, or is that too long?
The last email you sent was November 8th.
That helps.
November 8th.
November. Yeah, and that's when she sent an email to all of us, and then the subdivision. Oh, my phone's gonna die.
I've got temple subdivision regulations, 2023 updated, 2023 10.
Yep, that's it.
Jay, yes.
And 8.
10/8 is when I sent it,
11/8.
11/8. Anybody forward it to
Maybe it's.
Murray and Carter? I'm not sure if there was a lot of changes. I mean, I can just tell you what the comments were from the September version.
I just sent.
Okay, awesome. Thank
Oh, thanks, Keith.
you. I will save it.
Okay. So, we'll go back and look at the table of contents after we've got the content. So we'll just start with page 3. Everything was okay with authority section. The first comment refers to section 2, application procedure letter C. And the comment was, what is this referring to when we talk about entering into the preliminary stage? And I think what we're talking about is the design review phase. So I think we just need to specify that there. You guys good? Yeah.
That makes sense, yeah.
Under letter E. Let's see.
Notice of the.
Notice of the meeting is required, but not the notice to abutters. So that was the difference.
And the RSA was added as well.
Right. So.
Well, it should say.
It should say is.
Not required.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to determine. Should it say is required? The public notice for the meeting is required, but then not the notice to the abutters. Like, we don't have to mail out letters to the abutters for that phase. So maybe I'll just check that. I don't think I looked at that RSA. And then. I mean, we can look at the RSA if we want to.
Yeah.
Do it right now.
There's those 6, 7, 6, 4, and then.
For 676. Whole bunch of things here. Roman numeral 1. D.
Here's his on screen. Yeah, Christine was. It's not, it's the one.
Oh, yeah, that's not the Gen Court one. I got the book.
Yeah,
Yeah,
don't think it changes much.
yeah, and this says, notice to the applicant, holders of conservation preservation, it says planning board shall notify all of those people by verified mail, but that's the next phase. That's not this phase. So I guess we'll just check on that because it is my understanding that notice of abutters is not required for preliminary consultation. I think they are confusing the design review with the preliminary. So, yep,
Right, because this is under the.
this is just for preliminary
preliminary,
consultation.
yeah.
We don't send out letters for that. We only do it for
Right,
the next phase.
right, so they're confused here.
Yes, I think the lawyer's confused. And because maybe we didn't specify design review or preliminary versus design.
Right,
It's in the preliminary section.
It is in the
Right.
preliminary section, so we'll just follow up on that, but. The next section. Number 3, she said we can remove everything after abutters. And then I just looked at what the RSA says. It says abutters, applicant, holders of conservation, preservation, or agricultural preservation restrictions, and every engineer, architect, land surveyor, or soil scientist whose professional seal appears on any plat submitted to the board. That's what the RSA says.
And that's on page.
That's still page 3. Yep, at the bottom. So that's number 3.
so we should just remove the 10%.
The 10%, yeah, they said that isn't in the statute, which I looked at it, I didn't see it anywhere in the statute either. So I just looked at what language was in the statute.
Yeah, let's do.
And then for number 4, again, I think they're confused about what's conceptual and what's design. Because they said this is a threshold conceptual discussion, which if we're in the design review phase is passed.
Right,
We've already done the conceptual. Okay, I'm on to number 5. My page numbering might be off.
what does that mean, what to do here?
Which one? For number 5?
Yeah, this whole thing is highlighted blue, but then it says what to do here in red.
Oh, and mine it says, admin, these seem to be much more formal than the statute contemplates. Can you give me more background on exactly what you're talking about there? Can you give me some background on this?
Probably because it was highlighted
That's
to
in the
comment.
prior.
This statute looks to reasonable net when setting the rules, so I just want the planning board to keep that in mind so that the rules aren't an impediment to application, i.e. requiring an engineer and the cost thereof at this preliminary stage.
Yeah, so that, yeah, I think that applies to both of those.
That's
Yeah. So they just asked for some background on that. I don't know what background. I don't know the background on it. You know, to advocate for a change one way or the other.
Well,
Well, has it been a problem?
No,
Doesn't feel like it has been, so I just leave it as.
Yeah.
Hey, would this have come up with the last one that we looked at because of the way that Alan had not initially taken into account the curvature of where the water, where the what do you call it, the wetlands were. So he had to modify it. And then but you have an engineer actually do that so as to effectively cover himself because remember the abutters did have an issue with that. So he did it voluntarily. If he hadn't done it voluntarily,
I think it is in our regulations though, that we asked for it.
It is.
Yeah, so,
but if it is, then, but it's saying we need an engineer to sign off on.
that's not how I read it, but yeah, I don't see anything about an engineer
The
and
last bit, it says, i.e. requiring an engineer. And it
In the
costs
comments.
I know I see it in the comment, I just don't see it anywhere in our zoning, so,
No, I think it's comment to say,
yeah.
you have to take into account that if the change was required, then it may require an engineer at the cost of the applicant.
Right, and then, but the last thing says that this preliminary stage, and this is not a preliminary stage, this is like the second phase. Yeah,
What it does is.
it's not the conceptual,
Design review, not.
yeah,
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Right,
And actually, design review is in bold letters as well, so,
Mhm.
right,
so that is.
yeah, I don't know if I did that though, or if after the fact, because I remember when I got these, that Russ and I were like, what is he talking
I
about?
think that's a good point, making design review bold.
Yeah,
It negates that.
yep,
The number of paper copies is 4 historical, is that?
4 is what historically what we've asked for, but that predates getting PDFs.
Right.
So we have been only asking or keeping 2 copies. They have been submitting 4 because we haven't changed our subdivision regulations yet.
You can attest to the giant amount.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah. I'm fine with saying 2 paper copies and 1 PDF
One electronic.
and 1 electronic, yeah. The PDF is just easier, but
I assume that saves money.
yeah,
Printing big sheets of paper.
so that's what I'll change that.
Okay.
Let's see, down to number 8. Abutters and the general public are notified and they recommended. I think just taking out that no public comment is
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
And public comment may be allowed at the board's discretion.
Is there any reason we wouldn't do public comment?
No, not necessarily, but they'll have an opportunity to comment at the hearing. That's
Okay.
formally when
Alright.
people are able to voice their opposition
Right.
or support.
But
Yeah,
You want to put design review bold.
yeah,
Anytime you do that, it just emphasizes.
yep. And so let's see on number 9, it's so hard for me to see these lines.
Number 9 is the same comment.
It's the same
It's the
comment,
same.
yep. And I think we did not make it a requirement, and I don't know how, I think that's what we talked about, but if we've changed our mind, we can change our mind, but I think we said it was optional at this stage, because if not, then we're notifying abutters twice for the hearing, and that could be an impediment.
But they waived it. It does before.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with, for, a complicated application, certainly we'd want to consider that if we had a 33 lot subdivision.
Right.
But if we're just talking about minor subdivisions or lot line adjustments,
Because you're saying maybe.
yep. Yep,
So you're saying leave it up?
leave it, I would leave it as
Yeah.
optional.
Yeah.
Same with number 10.
Mhm.
Let's see, down to the hearing. I think they recommended taking out number 3.
There is no formal action report, so this language is too strong. an applicant can formally apply with the same thing, obviously there is a risk.
Yeah, so basically the board only would say, yes, you could submit the final application or no. You know, there's still some things that we need. And I think what they're saying is number 5 is essentially the same thing.
4 is going to come.
Yeah, so she was saying that this is it's saying non-binding, or that,
Cannot stop someone applying. It can definitely be reworked to state that the board will prepare this list, which is what we referred back before. Because
Yeah.
either you approve it or you don't approve it. If you don't approve it, you put the reason.
yeah.
Now you have the planning board hearing. And you say in the section 1,
Mm-hmm.
it's the next regularly scheduled meeting. Or should it be the next regularly scheduled hearing?
Well, hearing, we typically schedule them at the meeting, same time as a meeting, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, I'm just questioning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like contradictory. At the next regularly scheduled meeting, the project is reviewed for compliance with the regulations. So it's like saying we're deciding if we're ready to schedule a hearing. But if we're in the design review phase, we would have to have a hearing.
So are they saying that we should just ditch 3, 4, and 5? Because they could.
No, I think, well,
Because number 1 says.
number 1 says, yeah,
We're gonna
recommendations
make
are made.
recommendations, and after
Yeah.
that, they can follow them or not.
Yeah. Yeah, they are a bit repetitive. And then I think what she was saying about number 5 is the 1-year date. It's just sort of random.
Yeah,
It's really shouldn't be based on a date. It's just based on if any changes have been made. Right? So
It doesn't ever.
it's a design review, so it's
Design
not
reviews,
approval.
It's not an approval, it's just,
They
if
have to come
nothing,
back before you anyways.
yeah,
Right.
if nothing has significantly changed.
Then I agree.
You
It
just
seems redundant.
pick it up, but the board would, if there were changes, either in the design or in regulations.
Right,
then Review that at the final application stage.
right. So we get rid of 3, 4, and 5?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well,
That
I mean, they may
hearing-
come back to us with more changes. This isn't necessarily gonna be the final version, so we'll,
That hearing, is there that's a opportunity for public comment?
yes,
Doesn't say that. Projects, he says, we review the project. Questions and concern are discussed with the applicant. Period.
So we say in the previous one, abutters and the general public are notified, public comment may be allowed at the board's discretion. Should that line be down here, that second sentence?
They should be under the planning board hearing, yeah.
Yeah,
It should, you know.
and then
You
there's
move
probably
eight-
different RSA, but.
Yeah, you move 8 from above down to planning board hearing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's usually when we have a discussion, with the public has their opinion.
Right. We're ready to move on to the next.
Yep.
Final application. Letter B. And my eyesight is.
It refers back to the comments above.
Yeah,
So some of the approved preliminary.
yeah, and we're not approving the preliminary layout, we're just,
So we just, everything after it says section 202 scratch maybe?
yeah,
Keep submitted material must be complete.
yep,
Yep. Gotta keep that.
Well, you say, shall be compliant with the preliminary layout, to take out with.
or be consistent,
Yeah, to take out the word approved.
just be consistent with design review.
Yeah. So what that said, what that would say is no major changes.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's okay, sure.
Yeah.
If you came in with one road and you're now coming in with 3 roads.
Right.
That's not consistent.
That's not consistent.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, still not sure that that'll fly legally, but because I don't know that we can hold somebody to that. They could still submit a final application that's
Oh, yeah,
different.
you can, but you'd have to go for another review then. In other words, you'd go, I mean.
Well, you can
Not
ask for a waiver. You can say, I
could-
don't want to.
Yeah, not necessarily. I think we need to just strike that.
I'm also feeling that the design review is just pointless. Really, I mean, everyone has it, but it seems to be a pointless thing, 'cause it's not binding.
Yeah,
All it is you're coming, you're paying for an application and you're doing all this kind of stuff, like it's a final, only to have to do it again.
right.
So you're saying you go from what we've been terming the
Preliminary.
preliminary directly to the final.
Personally, that's what I always do. I do the preliminary, or not even the preliminary. Sometimes I just feel, hey, this is the application, it's gonna get approved or it's not.
Hmm,
The idea originally, when we spoke about the preliminary, was for people who didn't know what the heck they.
A conceptual.
A conceptual.
Yeah.
Right, I can see that.
So in other words, that we could turn conceptual instead of preliminary.
I think that we did change it to that. We call it the preliminary conceptual.
I think we only need one word there to describe it, either conceptual or. preliminary.
So a lot of people go with a conceptual plan and the planning board first, and then they'll like call me or somebody else.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
Yeah.
Planning.
I like
Right,
I
right.
want you to do it.
I think that's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That way you can take out the whole side of the preliminary.
Yeah, and that's why we don't require the design review. Like,
Right.
we can waive it.
Yeah. I guess for big projects, if it's a 32 lot subdivision with 2 roads and, fire pond and all that, it might be good to come first and say, hey, what are my issues?
Well, and that's regional impact
Yeah,
too.
right.
You could have that conversation at that stage, which is what New Ipswich did.
Right.
They came to us during the earlier phase. Okay. Let's see. So under 2.03 final application D. I think that was just correcting a typo, right?
Is something to do with.
For all necessary parties,
But
not limited to, yeah,
Yeah.
so that's fine. Again, down to the public hearing section. So, yeah, so the language, we say by certified or registered mail, mailed not less than 10 days before the date fixed therein. She said that language was confusing. So the RSA says by verified mail as defined in RSA 2153, notice shall be mailed at least 10 days prior to submission.
Need to receive it 10 days in advance. So it's
No,
mailed.
not receive. We mail it 10 days. They're gonna receive it on different days, but we have to mail it 10 days before. It has to be postmarked 10 days before the hearing, not including the
Like,
date
so
of the hearing.
they were saying- See,
No, that's why she said it was confusing. Yeah,
They
so,
could choose, someone could choose to.
Not
notice
pick
that
it up.
there's certified mail and choose not to receive it.
Right.
right. Right. Sorry, my sister's having surgery today, but that's not. Let's see, down to action of the board. Yep. I think what she's saying is submitting an application as complete, but we don't put the criteria for what's considered complete in this section. It's somewhere else. It's on our application. So I think we should just refer to the checklist. I think that's what she's saying. We should be referring to the checklist or a section of our ordinance that lists the items, which actually comes a little bit later.
Which one are they different?
The checklist should mirror, that's when I
Yeah.
took the checklist, I mirrored every section, so I numbered all the sections.
Okay.
I think that's on, well, it's on my page 8, letter D, 4.01. I think that's the checklist, right?
Which page?
Well, my page numbers are off because I added some text.
This one.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
this the checklist?
Basically.
Okay.
So
It
maybe-
starts there, because in the checklist, what I broke it down to is what is required on everything.
Mm-hmm,
And then further, if it's a minor subdivision
or a lot line.
or a lot line adjustment or
Okay.
major.
So we just need to refer to the checklists.
In
Or-
section.
Section 4,
Yep,
plat requirements.
yep,
The appropriate checklist, because there's multiple in there though.
right, right. Okay. I don't, let's see. Under letter B, under action of the board, that's 2.05. It's my page 5. I don't know if that's the same. There's those 3, 1, 2, 3 under letter B. When I looked at her note, I felt like maybe that should be a letter C, not under letter B. Because it's not,
Yeah, which is what
Yeah.
she's
It's
saying,
separate,
right? Like,
yeah.
To add it as a
separate.
C,
Yeah, she said 2.06, but I think it's still an action of the board. It's just
Yep.
a different letter. It's 2.06. And she's saying we could take this out. These are select board actions. I don't know where the select board would tell an applicant what their options are. If not here,
It should be on one. I mean, it
I think so.
shouldn't be hidden somewhere like.
We shouldn't make it harder, yeah,
Yeah.
for somebody to have to go look for it. They should know they have steps they can follow. That's how I feel.
It's important to say, then the select board is required to approve.
Yeah. It's just letting people know what their options
Yeah.
are. Let's see. Down to 2.09. So here's where I'm gonna defer.
Would that be?
Was-
One-
I think it's the same.
Yeah.
This gets into the road stuff,
Mhm.
right? So it has no authority. The select board and the town meeting has the authority to accept a road or not, essentially.
Hmm.
And same with open space. So,
So that's not really a statement that
yeah,
holds any.
no,
So just get ditched there.
yeah. There's more about roads later on. Let's see, section 3. other required permits have been issued. And I think it's just referring to the state subdivision. Is there
Right.
anything else besides that?
Well, if you had a big road, then you could have alteration of terrain.
Okay,
If you had wetlands crossings.
Right.
Wetlands board,
So do you have to list some ideas, is that what I'm asking for? In other words, suggest.
should we list what they are?
maybe, yeah,
Or,
I know
Those change.
other
That- well, that's what I
applications
was
in their
saying, but-
checklist have that, they'll have a list of. Do
right,
you have, or even the state one has, do you need these other state approvals?
Refer to checklist,
including but not limited to,
Yeah.
or just refer to checklist, because on the checklist. You would add those in as requirements during the.
If,
right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
See is where that's what
Yes.
they're saying, preliminary processes can be waived. So that's just reiterating what we talked about earlier. So we've got,
Should it say, conceptual, should we specify? The conceptual,
Conceptual can be, right? Is
Yeah.
that- and
yeah. Does that make sense?
I don't understand what we're talking.
This one,
Yeah.
they may avail themselves of the assistance of the board before preparation of application or plans and during the conceptual phase, preliminary conceptual 2.0, it says 2.01 and 2.02. I'm on 3.01, letter C.
Because they believe with assistance of the board.
It's conceptual or design phase,
Right.
Yes.
so just specifying.
So we just straighten that part. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody know what the reserve strips is about? 3.03?
I know historically what's happened is people would say they want to do a subdivision, but they didn't want any future subdivision, you could put a little strip of land between the road and, like that and say, okay, now you can't access the road or. you know,
Okay,
That's one thing that's happened. I don't know. A lot of towns have this.
they do.
I've seen this, the reserve strips thing
Mm-hmm.
lots of times. I don't know if anybody. Well, they don't because it's not allowed, but
So can you say that again? So you would create a strip of land like in front of like the road?
all along the road frontage so that nobody else, so you just get this lot, one lot that has the right frontage.
Okay,
And then all along, have this little reserve strip so that they couldn't take their 100 acres you just sold them with 50 feet of frontage. And further subdivide it along the
Oh.
road.
Huh.
I mean, that's just one. There's other ways you could make reserve strips for like,
yeah.
Right. So do you think it makes sense to keep that in there? I mean, we wouldn't approve a lot like
Right,
that.
It wouldn't meet the.
Right.
Wouldn't meet
criteria.
the criteria.
So
right.
I don't think it is applicable.
I don't think anybody ever does a reserve, take a reserve. It's something people used to do.
Yeah, okay,
So,
So it could be a carryover.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
left over from,
previous,
like when people first got right in the regs, like, oh, remember this guy that did that?
yeah, yeah,
Or they do it because, they don't do it anymore because it's in here.
Right, yeah.
we wouldn't approve
well, we
it.
wouldn't approve it though, because it wouldn't.
It doesn't meet our
the-
criteria.
Well, you-
footprint
Oh,
And the square, right?
The square, yeah,
Yeah, but you could, that strip could also then, and then
Oh,
come
I
out the
see.
right, you know,
Yeah,
Would you approve a lot?
I'm not sure how else you could apply that.
yeah,
So if you look at our zoning maps, there is a subdivision that has essentially reserved strips in
All
the
around.
form of private, of open space.
Yeah.
Which is allowed by that paragraph. If you look here.
except an
Here is
open
a
space
strip of
area.
open space.
Yeah,
That is created to prevent anybody from. Or anybody doing stuff here that this abutter can't agree because they don't actually buy.
yeah. Huh. But that it is open.
That is, in this subdivision,
Yeah.
this is considered open space. Rules of-
Yeah,
But open space is allowed.
It is by that.
Yeah,
That is funny, because that's what a conservation. It's a cluster subdivision, I mean, they're all gonna limit,
yeah,
Yep, oh, this is a 50-foot wide, 51-foot wide strip of land along the property line.
yeah.
yeah.
okay, well.
Well,
maybe
we've got
just
some,
Leave it.
got some open space
Right.
recommendations later on.
That's what they say too, they said it disappears in subdivision regs, I don't know why.
Yeah,
At some point, it seemed like it was important, I guess.
yeah. Okay, well, we'll still leave that, I guess, for now.
It hasn't hurt anything. If it's been there and everyone else has it.
Yeah. Okay, I'm on to now lot line adjustments. Next, just the next section,
Or
section
Right.
4.
Okay, thank you.
Letter C is the first, or maybe that was just a typo.
So it seems to be incomplete, is they're just supposed to say that the approval becomes final if all federal, state, and local regulations. That's
Yeah, I think there was a. I can't see with my bad eyesight. Is there a semicolon on the end? That should be a period.
Probably.
yes, but he also says any approvals are described by law. It just says by law instead of what they actually stated.
I have from any other municipal, state, or federal agency which may have jurisdiction.
Which I think is very phrased.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think you put a period, I think that'll stop that request.
okay,
Period.
yep. Then the next one, they were saying, move it into its own section. It's just a formatting,
Yeah. So it would be-
and they're saying if this is just for lot line adjustments, if there's for everything.
Well, I already said that earlier, it's just,
Lot line,
yeah.
Yeah,
as it goes
that's what
along,
they're
it
asking.
builds, yeah.
right? So. Does it say, yeah, so then it says
Just for minor subdivision.
minor subdivisions, it's letter
C.
C, yeah, exactly, so maybe they put that comment in before they read further. But I don't know,
Or maybe just move C,
sense of it.
by itself,
That's what it is,
yeah,
right, because it is for lot line
It's a simple version, then when you get the minor, it's the simple version plus.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think what they're saying is if you're just looking for a minor subdivision, then you have to backtrack.
Yep, you do, yeah.
So I wonder if it makes sense to say for all. And then for lot line adjustments. A through
Oh, yeah.
D, or I'm just throwing it out there as another option for formatting. What makes the most sense,
okay, so up here, lot line adjustments, you only need to,
just for plat requirements, and then a paragraph saying for all. Subdivision applications, and then everything, and then for 4.01 lot line adjustments. Anything that only applies to lot line adjustments.
okay.
you know,
Yep.
does that make sense? Or does that make it harder? I don't know.
That's seeing it, yeah, I'm. trying to
Yeah, maybe we'll
visualize.
just visualize it in a
Um,
different format and we'll see how it looks. And we pick which one seems to make the most sense. If you don't mind, but I
No.
think you have the master copy of this, so.
So I would probably move 402C and make that 402A so that right off the bat, you know, you have to include everything
Yep,
instead of reading down, oh, I had to have that too.
right.
Right. Okay.
So then I'm down to minor subdivisions. Number 7, existing and future subdivisions. What does that refer to? I think it's, I mean, I think this happened with Randy's subdivision, is he, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he brought a plan for a subdivision and said down the road, he thought he was gonna subdivide more, but he wasn't ready to do it yet. So that's the only scenario I know that has happened that was taken into consideration at the time of the application, but he still met all the requirements.
Cause otherwise you'd have to be a mind reader now.
Yeah, I mean, no, people don't necessarily know, but. Cause that's recent subdivision would be. Recent, not necessarily future.
Right.
Maybe it says, it should say planned instead of future. I don't know.
Plan future.
Planned, cause it could be at the planning board,
Yeah,
if you. I suppose it
It
was
might
already
not
in the
necessarily
works.
be planned, because in
Yeah.
the future, it's just conceptual.
Right.
yeah.
So the future,
But is it not applicable to them? I mean, I think it's helpful to know, but
Yeah, it shouldn't be a factor in the decision. It still has to meet the
I
requirements.
still have to. Aren't.
Yeah,
Almost feel like you could.
I don't,
remove-
I think I would remove.
yeah,
Well, just,
because
how do
an
you know?
idea of
Yeah.
what's gonna happen.
And it's worth
yeah, right.
And then you look foolish if you get yours approved this month and all of a sudden next month, you know. Meridian comes in with a subdivision next door and you didn't know about it.
Yeah,
Wait
yeah.
a minute.
Right.
How come you didn't say this?
I think
Oh,
it's more like if somebody owns the land and
Yeah,
they were planning to do a few at a, you know, not do them all at once. Yeah,
So what should we do here?
I feel like it could come out, but it's
Okay.
not like also that critical either.
right, right. I feel the same way. It's, yeah, we can,
To leave, okay.
yeah,
go right away.
yeah. George, you have an opinion on that one? Okay,
Oh, this is a good one.
are you down to major subdivisions, number 4?
Yeah,
We've got 4.01 and underlying, but there's no comment on. Was that just a correction?
I think.
The
so,
correct-
they
yeah, I think it's
added
just a correction.
That section number.
Oh, it's added.
Yeah, just added the section number. So on number 4, yeah, it's too vague. So I guess, do we consider things within a certain distance or within the boundaries?
it's hard in any case.
Yeah.
Because the parcel being subdivided, you could say known easements.
Yeah,
That the parcel is subject to, but all easements could mean you're benefited by, so what if you have an easement to go up on Temple Mountain? It's not even touching you, but or you have a lake easement,
right.
it's not even touching your property, it has nothing to do. The Alta survey companies sometimes will require you, you gotta go survey something that's not even touching your property because they want to know all the benefiting easements to your property. In this case, you may not know any easements that your parcel is subject to, because you could have sold some guy in Laconia an easement to use, that trail to go hunt to his hunting camp. It's not gonna be in your deed because you still own your property. So unless somebody looks up that guy and finds out, oh, how would you ever find that?
Yeah, what's the correct way to say that?
But it says on or off the site.
Right, so off the site I wouldn't think it would be there.
So take off and say all known easements, or just all easements?
I feel like if you add known, then it becomes.
Yeah, there's an out. Yeah,
Just say all.
I didn't know about it.
Yeah, just say accurate locations of all easements.
And that's,
Well,
is that covered?
Make it, of all known easements to or on the property. To be subdivided,
But it
so,
doesn't matter, I mean, if you're saying all easements, whatever's in the deed,
right, but you might have an easement on your neighbor's property to access yours.
it's usually referenced in the deed. I have that on mine goes back to 1798. Where it mentions the access on Old Revolutionary Road, that it must be kept as viable.
But they're not always. That's the problem. Is that quite often an easement doesn't carry through even, sometimes even the parcel description. You can have people that says their property is lot 15 in the 7th range, but it's been subdivided hundreds of times now, and now it's a 1 acre parcel. How's this 1 acre parcel?
But if there's an easement that predates that gives you certain permissions to go across those, that would take precedent.
It would, but you wouldn't know that from reading your deed.
Right,
Well,
Because it doesn't necessarily have to follow your deed. You'd have to go read somebody else's deed to see, like, say you have an easement, I've granted you one, and you sell your property and it keeps going down. But I never put it in my deed. I never referred to it as anything. And I sold my property without referring to the easement, which happens all the time. So whoever buys my property is going to have no idea that you have an easement. And since maybe you're not even a butter, how would they're going to have to go search the registry, just everybody, in case somebody has an easement across my property. And it's hard because you should show easements.
Once we also need known.
Right, known easements, and it's hard because known, it's easy to get out of. You can go, I didn't know about it,
Right,
but
It sounds like too much for get out of jail free to me.
it's what's that?
That's a get out of jail free.
Yeah.
So the easement can be recorded in either person's deed.
Usually it's the person who gets the easement.
I don't know if that's.
Gets.
yeah, not helpful.
Right, so,
Because anybody else,
Okay.
right, so
would you want mine?
does it when a lawyer now would probably say, if you sold somebody easement, it's in your deed now, you write that in there.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen lots of times, and so you find all the times, you start doing research on a big, huge piece, and there's easements that show up, it's like, wow, nobody even knew about these. And I don't know the cure to doing that. I mean, you should
Yeah.
definitely show like utility easements. because
Right.
They'll probably have something.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm thinking of the cases, sort of two cases where you've got that big property and there's old easements across it, and all of a sudden. We approve a subdivision plan with a road and a house or a building lot. That prevents that easement from being
Right.
used. So knowing about easements on the property feels important. Knowing about easements to the property might be important for a landlocked property where there's no road. And we're approving a subdivision for which, how do you get to it? And you're validating if that access does exist, if that's our job.
Well, you'd have to say that easements on a button. Houses.
We had that problem with the old glass factory.
Yeah.
In West Grove. Mr. Earl Young, who owned the yellow house up here on 45. he also owned the land with the glass. factory.
Yeah.
So he gave the land for the glass factory to the town with a right of way. So that the people would always have access to the old glass factory. Well, the Bradleys got pretty upset, and when we were trying to improve the way in there.
Yep.
The Bradleys were pretty obstinate. Uh, Mr. Fisk dumped 2 loads of stuff from the sides of the road in the right of way to get in there. And I went up with my Kubota to level it off, and the 2 loads were missing. Bradley brought in a loader and a dump truck, and they took all that out because they didn't want
Wow.
them to have access.
Right.
So then I called Tim up and I says, Tim, next time you can bring stuff up there, let me know, and I'll put my Kubota tractor down in the back of it. You dump it off and I'll level it out for the way down. Well, Bradley didn't know that that was deeded right away. So somebody on the, I don't think who it was now, he went back and checked out the deed. And they had to go and show the Bradleys that the deed is right away.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah.
They've, they're still not, amenable to people going up there.
But they can't stop it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think for this one, we could just leave it as accurate location of all easements.
Yeah,
And or we can just look around and see what other towns are doing.
right. Do we want to specify
Well, instead of easement,
utilities and access? Or just leave it all
No.
easements?
All easements, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then I think they added that last bit. Said acceptance is in the sole discretion of the town. Et cetera.
Not by the
I just want to check in, everybody's still okay to keep going or?
What section are we on now?
Well, let's look
Or
for still 403. I think there's one more. C, letter C. I think they're just saying that we need to take that out. We cannot require open space. It can't be discretionary. We have to have a criteria for when we would require open space. Is there a minimum size?
So when it references section 5 below, it also is kind of wishy-washy where it says the word when we deem essential.
Yeah.
Require the plat to have, so.
Yeah,
Again, you're asking people to jump. Well,
Right. Because basically, it looks like to prevent people from missing section 5, it's just referencing open space. Open space is described in section 5 may be required, maybe is the simple thing to do is see.
so take out the at its discretion.
Yeah.
The planning board may require open space design per section 5.
It just says, okay, look forward. Don't stop your. When you get down to legal review, don't go to sleep.
Right.
That's all, it's a courtesy thing. It's not.
Okay, so then we go down to the open space. 5, yeah, section 5, design for open space, 501. And we say in an area not to exceed 15%. And yet in our zoning ordinance for PRDs, we say 40%. We actually say the area of the open space shall be at least 40% of the total area of the planned residential development tract. So it's contradictory to what we have here.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Should this reference the zoning?
yeah. Well, I mean, I think this doesn't just apply to PRDs.
Right.
It could apply to any subdivision. So that needs some clarification. So it could say, except for a PRD,
Is that where the 40% comes from?
yeah,
Say it less.
Yeah, that would.
Okay, so letter A is just limiting us,
Right.
yeah,
where the PRD is telling the applicant what they have to do.
right. Do you want to take a stab at rewording that?
Right, but this, like you just said, Christine, it could be any subdivision versus
Right,
only if you're.
right. That's the
Delineating.
distinction, yeah. And then that next one, B, open space shall not be less in area than as provided in the zoning regulations. So we have to
Okay, so you kind of covered,
keep an eye on that.
yeah,
Make sure we don't say something twice, but also that we're clear on what section of the zoning regulations we're referring to. And then they suggest adding registry of deeds in that letter B. After town land records.
Hmm.
And that.
Yep.
Okay, down to trees and planting. So he said, is this language required? It's not required. It's an optional for the RSA. It's an option that we're given. We can require landscaping.
That's why it says may.
Yeah.
So I think it's-
And then they asked, do we have excavation regulations? And we do. Did those last year. Well, we updated them.
Well, in their comment though, is a landscape plan required.
And it is not required. We may require.
So it says shall, you want to change that to may?
Well, so this says the board may require additional tree planting, but it doesn't say a landscape plan. Because you could just say, I'm gonna
That's
put in
true.
20 trees,
Yeah,
do whatever you want. Whereas usually a landscape
right.
plan,
So do you want to say a landscape plan instead of tree planting? It may require landscaping as
Or-
appropriate.
and appropriate.
Or a landscape, are you saying a landscape plan is more binding? So-
well, it's, yeah, because you've got, I'm gonna plant a maple tree on either side of the right of way every 50
Yeah.
feet.
Right.
That's fair. Dictated that you have to put a certain number of trees.
Okay.
Right.
Right, for a
Screen.
screen.
And also for the
Clifton Waits,
listeners.
the abutters, yeah.
And what this doesn't seem to do though, is with the landscape plan, it doesn't tell you like,
What has to be included.
yeah, well, it doesn't give you any clue as to what you might be asked to do. You know, we could say, I want this to look like the tropics. I want everything you could possibly think of. Or we could say one tree's good.
Well, what if, I mean, I'm trying to think how we could refer back to the zoning where we talk about a riparian buffer or, you know, to
Hmm.
be more specific to sections of our current zoning.
Because we're betting on screening.
Yeah,
I think some of this might have happened in the late 80s when we were concerned about factories moving into town and building. And so we're kind of looking to the commercial end of it. And we wanted to make sure that they didn't strip the
right.
land around the factory or whatever they put in.
Yeah.
And they'd leave enough topsoil for planting.
So at that point, we would want to have.
They address, just say additional tree planting and other landscaping appropriate into the area being developed.
I mean, I
Which
think
is
it sounds-
in the discretion of the planning board, which or zoning is because that's what they do. with Ben, it was at their discretion. And they
Mhm.
volunteered to file.
Right,
I just don't know if it holds any weight.
Right.
No.
If you went to court and say,
No,
it's your
exactly.
discretion.
well, it was written in the notice of decision. to
Yeah.
them. Yeah,
But he had to agree to it. He could have
Yes.
said, no, I don't agree.
yes, yes,
So, I mean, maybe that could just say a landscape plan rather than,
yep,
I mean. Again, this is at the discretion of the board,
right,
Okay.
so.
just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Okay, then the next one, the development of open space. State highlighted the graded properly to dispose of surface water and shall be seeded, and they asked if there are stormwater management ordinance. So what we have, for stormwater management, we do have it for the Mountain District Conservation Development. It's not very specific, it just says the applicant shall provide plans for stormwater management. It's also included in the large wind energy section. And then there's some reference to it under wetlands protection. And conditional use permits. But nothing very specific. For under stormwater for wetlands, it says water flow shall be considered in selecting the location and design of any construction or activity within the setback area designated in A above, which talks about the setbacks, so as to reduce the flow of stormwater from entering the water body prior to filtration. That's all we have as far as stormwater management. So I don't know that we change anything that's here, but it might be something we want to look at. And maybe we'll come back through the natural resources regulatory review, I would think.
Mm.
So let's just keep that one in mind, and circle back to it. Okay, on to section 6, road and utilities standards. And I refer to you, Murray and George, I think you guys went to the road webinar
A while ago, yes.
a while ago. They offer them once a year,
It
so
was a while.
if anybody wants to go, I'm sure there'll be another one coming up after March, after town meetings. And for new members. This is a tricky one because the select board and the town vote on roads, right? I don't know that we have any road specifications anywhere else in town documented. Do you know, George?
Yeah. I know there are some roads in town that have been abandoned,
Right,
and in that meeting, he said that it doesn't matter whether they were abandoned or whatever,
mm-hmm,
the town still owns those roads.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Yep.
I think this is talking mainly about new roads.
Yep.
Mm-hmm,
So if you build a new road, it'll be on a 50-foot wide right of way, 20 feet wide. With 2 foot shoulders. Paved.
yeah, so the first question about the map is the map regularly updated? And the answer is no, we still have the 1972 zoning map in our zoning ordinance. I don't know that many roads have been added since then, but certainly some. Right?
What, in the last
Yeah,
40 years,
yeah, since 1972, there's a few new roads, right?
Calvin Road.
Glen Farm,
Glen Farm.
Sarah Drive. Those are all new.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the 1972 map that's in our zoning, well, I can pull it up. It just has the zoning districts. It doesn't really have a lot of detail.
Maybe that's just like the wrong reference. Town, maybe is there a town highway map?
This is the 1972 map.
Yeah.
So maybe we just need to reference a different map.
I think there's a town highway, and what's the one that's hanging up in the town office on the wall?
Yes, there is one there. And there's also one in the master plan,
Okay,
which is more current.
so maybe reference the master plan then instead,
Yeah, and yeah, I would,
reference the current master.
right.
Yep.
There's probably a specific name for the map too.
Mm,
Mentioned in the zoning ordinance of 2022.
Is that what it says?
The zoning districts listed above shall be bounded as shown in the map entitled Hampshire zoning map 1972.
Is that what it says in the master plan?
It says the no zoning ordinance.
Not sure.
It's also mentioned.
Here, there's the road index.
yeah, we're talking about, that should be the,
That should be the one. Yeah, that's open space. Birds. It's too tiny for me to see a date on here. But if you blow it up, you could probably read. It looks like it might say 2007.
still,
Yeah, it's still outdated. So I don't know, maybe the office has a more current one, but
maybe Jeff will be doing that with his GI, with his,
maybe,
Oh, there you go.
yeah,
because he's gonna have probably print out a plan that we can use.
so yeah, we need a more current map with the roads referenced here. I don't know about the background on the provision shall be made for the extension of the street patterns to abutting undeveloped property. I don't know anything about that one.
Which was on
It's still that first paragraph, where required by the board, provision shall be made for for the extension of the street patterns to abutting undeveloped property. And then, yeah,
So you see this a lot in other parts of the country when you see a subdivision go in next to a vacant lot. And they've already put the road and the thing to that vacant lot, even though the vacant lot won't be developed for a year. But there's a plan,
There's an access to it.
there's an access to
down the
it,
road,
so
yeah.
it's kind of like in that discretion. When required by the board, provisions should be made for an extension of street patterns to abutting undeveloped property. If we know there is another subdivision that hasn't been approved, that's been developed. Next to this subdivision application, we can say, people, coordinate your roads
mhm,
and make them
Right.
connect. Just
Right.
what that allows us to.
right.
Railway line. East, west.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess the other thing that this leads me to think about is, again, roads have to be approved by the select board and the town has to vote to accept,
So,
because we're accepting maintenance of,
so that they don't vote before they're built.
Okay, so a lot of times it's the road right of.
right, so it's privately owned until the
Yeah.
town votes to accept it.
Right.
I see, yep,
So it's really in the planning stage, so.
Yeah,
right,
If we know there's another big subdivision going in next to the one that we're looking at, we can ask those two parties to.
you can reserve an easement.
Yep.
For a future roadway access.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you think we should keep that sentence
I
in?
think so.
I think so.
It gives you the opportunity.
Okay. How's everybody doing? It looks like some eyes are glazing over. We don't have to finish this tonight. if we-
Well, you only do one through and then it's correction.
And then we'll come back. Yeah,
There's a lot.
Otherwise,
let's take a poll. Keith, good to go, or you want to go home? No opinion. George?
Okay, okay.
Carter, you've
if
got,
everybody else wants to keep going, we can keep going. I'm good with that, but we probably have another hour, so
Mm,
I don't know. Might
Okay.
be the table.
Can't do an hour, I can do like 15 minutes.
okay, let's call it for at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, so, but we'll finish the road
Yeah.
section maybe, because there's not a lot after this page. Let's see, so down to letter D. The following standards of design shall apply. And this is where they asked if is there any other resource for road construction, and I don't believe there is. And I think, it's confusing below, or like I highlighted everywhere it says roadway, where should it say right of way instead of roadway for, or is it?
I think roadways are legal.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like they questioned that word roadway is now showing up here, but is it
So
to
when
mean
you
something
compare-
greater than the
compare-
street?
If you compare 1 and 2,
Yep,
the right of way shall be 50 feet wide.
right, that's the axis, right?
The roadway shall be paved 20 feet.
Okay,
So it's kind of like the usable space.
okay. So,
I think you can go either way. You could say roadway or travel way or anything. What
Yeah.
the intent
Right.
is the paved part.
Right.
is there a legal definition or a state definition for that we should be referencing?
Are you also forcing a roadway to be paved? If it's a private road?
That was, so Kent's input on the road things was that we should not require paved roads. Is that right? Isn't that what you remember?
We should not.
That he didn't want us to require paved roads.
Right.
If we had a dirt road and we added a new road, it didn't make sense to pave the new road if
Right.
the existing road was dirt.
Should be in keeping with whatever.
Right, right.
But it was also very clear that there are some dirt roads in town that you would never have wanted approved.
Yes, Howard Hill is one of them, that hill.
So I remember the conversation of, yes, it doesn't make sense if you're accessing your paved road off a dirt road. But if you're accessing
Right.
your road off a paved road, and continue the pavement is, I think,
Mm,
was intended.
Yeah,
yes, right,
So. Not sure how to best word that. but-
right, okay,
Because this is on new roads as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
right. So let's come back to that.
number 2 is gonna be, yeah.
Yeah, that's gotta be rewritten. Yeah.
Nope.
So this says, the roadway shall be constructed in accordance with the typical cross-section on file at the select board office.
Correct. That's the typical cross-section that we used to have, but removed from the driveway regulations.
On the 30-foot.
So is there nothing in the office now that refers to a typical cross-section?
Well, it's removed from the driveway regulations. It might be there for a roadway regulation.
So we need to check in the office to see what they have. That's it. For that section, right?
I mean, you certainly have to take a look at this.
Oh, yeah, he's already looked at
Yeah,
it
you're right.
once.
Yeah.
All right, I'm on to number 4. And let's see, what is the approval referring to? Advise the select board and road agent of their intent in order to secure approval for the proposed right of way. So,
Obligation.
yep,
Yeah, I guess. we
To
don't
secure-
have A specific, we have to be more specific.
well, it's if they want the town to take over maintenance, right?
Right,
Which triggers an inspection process.
Right.
Construction.
Do you know that process, or
Yeah,
can we
it's
be
right.
more
Yep,
specific?
it's right. next-
Oh.
paragraph.
So that's almost, it's roads right of way. It should not be a separate letter. It should be
Should A-
continuation of A.
A should be-
It should just be part of A, right?
Yes. Yeah. say A, and then that should be a paragraph.
Okay. On to page 14, number 5. They're saying again, the inspection is not the purview of the planning board. It's up to the select board and the road agent.
But we're saying a town of Temple, I mean, maybe it
Yeah,
should be in here, but
well, again, yeah, again, it is that like, is it nowhere else?
then, yeah, I would. If that's.
Unless
what
we-
we're-
Yeah, right. And is that,
So what are we saying? We're saying get rid of that part?
no, I think we're saying we keep
Yeah.
it,
It is no, it's no.
because
there
if
is
it,
other things for it.
Okay.
right. Is number 6, does everyone have number 6? Mine's in orange, I'm not sure why.
Was this added though?
It must have been added.
Yeah, that was something Kent wanted in there. is
This was referring to what you mentioned.
Okay,
If you have-
okay,
if you have a substandard
Yeah.
existing road that now has to service 100 houses, what do you do?
okay, so they had no problem with that, so I'm gonna make that text black so that we don't keep coming back to it, number 6,
Mine's already black.
okay. Need a more precise rubric here for number 7. In its judgment, it's that wishy-washy.
In its.
And this is the planning board, not the select board. You may modify the design gradients. So it's giving some latitude that somebody can not comply with the regulations if, in this board's opinion, it's a better use of land from a topology, from natural features.
Right.
I feel like we just take out the in its judgment and right of way when existing topographic,
But also says the board, is that the zoning board? Because it's a zoning.
yeah, it should be more specific, right?
Planning board? To PB.
But this refers to the board all over the place.
Yeah,
Right?
But-
Well, the-
But the problem is you're in the zoning document, so.
Oh.
Zoning will refer as the board, so I think you need.
So we're-
No.
we would have to say when we were saying board, we're referring to the planning board somewhere else in the document.
But isn't this part of the planning board?
This is subdivision regs.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes, but it's.
And we
in the
do-
zoning document.
No,
but that's okay, it's still planning board, it's not zoning board. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. It's just 9:01. So let's pause there.
if you finish section 6, like one more page,
Didn't I finish it?
no, 602.
Were there any changes on there?
Oh, just read through, I don't have more.
I didn't see any comments, that's why I skipped.
Oh, okay.
So we'll start with section 7 and at the next meeting.
That started C.
And we'll
Oh, well, no, there's nothing on there.
we'll have updates
No.
too, but
Yeah. So it's section
based on
seven.
this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's section
So as you look through it, what I noticed is if it's a new road, we say it shall be 20 feet wide or greater depending on traffic.
Mm,
You get to the upgrade existing roads, there's a table that says it shall be 20, 24 feet, 20 or 24 depending on traffic.
Right.
But that doesn't apply to new roads, it only applies to upgrades.
right, so we should be
We
consistent.
should be
It's
consistent.
not referred to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Just, yeah.
Okay.
We'll stop there and.
We'll come back
Yeah.
to look at it again at the next meeting. I'll just quickly go through, there's the last 3 things. The budget, I got an email from Gail, that the budget that we submitted was approved, so that will be presented Thursday, the budget hearing. It's approved by the board,
Yep.
the committees, not by the voters yet, obviously. Nothing new on the filing project. Kathy and I still need to connect. The SWRPC meeting next week on the 13th on Tuesday at 5. They do provide snacks if you're hungry. And the topic is the legislative session, the 24 legislative session, a focus on planning with Natch Grays from the New Hampshire Municipal Association. They do ask you to RSVP, so just like a plan for food. And then there's a new series on the housing crisis, which I sent out a flyer in the email for any of these sessions, which will all be recorded and available later if you can't attend them live. That's all I have. Does anybody have anything else?
Second.
Hey, we'll vote. Keith?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you, everybody. So 9:04 is what I have, Kathy.
The other